one of the things that I would recommend to any coach is control all the things that you can control. So you tell your team, we can control our attitude, we can control our effort. As a coach, as a teacher, as an employee, you can control your organization. You can control having a good scout ready to go. You could, all of those elements along the way. So if you're telling your players, Billy, you got to come in ready to practice. You got to get out of there ready to get after it, blah, blah, blah. And you're coming to practice consistently without an organized practice plan, without knowing what direction you want to take the program, what's your vision for the program, what's your vision for your youth program, all those other things. Man, the player's going to pick up on that very, very quickly.
Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the host of the Pen and a Napkin podcast, Marty Plum. Coach Plum has 28 years of coaching experience, 18 as a head coach in Nebraska. He spent time as a head girls coach at Skutt Catholic, Gothenburg, and Fort Calhoun High School. He finished with a career record of 239 wins and 185 losses. His teams finished as state runner-up twice, played in 5 national tournaments at Briar Cliff, and 3 state tournaments at Skutt. Coach Plum was named the 2017 Nebraska Coaches Association All-Star Game Coach. As well as hosting the Pen and a Napkin podcast, Coach Plum released his book, Kings of Their Court, which gives you an inside look at 3 teams in Nebraska that were all ranked in the top 25 in the country during the 2020-2021 season. You can learn about his podcast, book, and more at apenandanapkin.com. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast.
The JAMODI podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. I just want to first say thank you so much for giving up your time and coming on. You and I have no connection except for the fact that I enjoy following you on Twitter. apenandanapkin.com, or that's your website, but a pen and a napkin. When I first saw that, I was like, that's such a great name because as coaches, we've all done that. We've been at the restaurant and we grab a pen and a napkin or whatever we can to write things down. And then, so I thought first is a great name, but then end up really enjoying following you. So this is an honor for me.
Thanks, man. I like your name as well, because I was like, where the hell does JAMODI come from? And so I listened to. I've been really busy the last few days. I had the USA basketball thing this weekend and stuff, and so. But I listened to the interview you did a couple weeks ago with Sharman, and I can't remember the acronym. Just whatever it is.
Just a matter of doing it. Yeah.
Just a matter of doing it. Let me write that down. I was going to write it. I had 7 periods today. I was bell to bell in front of the room, all 7 periods. So my brain's a little mush.
Coach, I feel bad. I feel really bad now.
No, it's cool, dude. It's cool. Trust me.
No,
I've been looking forward to this all day.
I'm just telling you that because of what my day looks like here at Grapevine Faith. I have study halls and some off periods in basketball. So I am so ready for this because I've been sitting around just preparing. You've been teaching bell to bell. I jokingly around here say, got to go teach bell to bell. And they all laugh at me because it's study hall. It's silent study hall. And so anyway, no, you're really grinding and really appreciate what you do for those kids. I used to be in the classroom, not anymore. 28 years of coaching. And you just did a USA Gold camp, and also excited. I do want to talk about your book that's coming out. Probably by the time this airs, it'll already be out. So we'll be able to tell people where to go and want to talk about all those things. But this is just, again, so excited to have you take you through some of these questions, and because not only with your coaching experience, but also you're a basketball, kind of a gym rat, but addicted to the game a little bit, I think in the same way that I am and a lot of people are. Just love to learn and love to get better, and you follow a lot of great people, so can't wait.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it, Matt. I listened to Charmin's interview today, and I think our podcasting style, if there is such a thing, I think they're pretty similar. So that could be good, or that could be very, very dangerous. It could go off the rails very, very quickly, but that's okay. We're going to have a lot of fun, and people are going to learn stuff from it, and that's the most important thing. That's why we both do it.
Just went through some of your coaching background and all the experience that you had, and then you doing something like this, but also with a pen and a napkin.com. I mean, I noticed all the resources on there, like the hours that you've spent coaching high achievers and studying high achievers. That has to be insane. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your daily habits that set you up for success.
Well, I mean, I think one of the big things that I do, I don't know how many things I do well, but I think one of the things that I do very well is I'm really organized. I really try to stay on top of it. I've got my planner here. Nothing. There's not very many better feelings in this world than making a list and then having that entire list scratched out by the end of the day. Like that's great. But I think just having a plan. Don Meyer, who is one of my coaching heroes, he used to say, plan your night, or plan your day the night before, plan your week on Sunday. And that's something that really stuck with me. And I think that if you're going to be efficient, and people listening to this are going to be basketball coaches or coaches of other types. A lot of people are educators. I think one of the things, I come from a family of educators. My grandmother was a teacher. My dad's a teacher. My brother's a teacher. My son's going to be a teacher. One of our kids is going to be a teacher. You got to take care of that classroom stuff first. I mean, a big way that you can get in trouble as a coach is be a bad teacher in the classroom. Yeah. And so I've always taken pride in, being really organized in that regard, taking care of that stuff. And one of the keys to that, and it's just natural human instinct, is the stuff I don't like to do, I do that first. Like and here's the thing that will get me out of education. I'm probably too committed to education. I got to ride it out at this point, but I hate grading. Like, and I just hate it. I hate it. And even not so much grading, like multiple choice quizzes or multiple choice tests or anything like that, but reading like essays. That is, if I want to read something, I want to read what I want to read, and that's hard for me. And so what I do is when I know I've got those assignments coming up and I know it's part of my job, I know it's part of helping the kids get better as students, I grade that stuff right away. I turn around and get it done, because I know the longer I let it sit there, even if it's a day, the harder it's going to be to come back to that, because it's so easy to push that off. So I think I do that well. I like to journal.
Let me jump in right there before you move on to the next one, because I think you're right on the money with organization, but also with getting that hard thing done first. You probably heard that term, eat the frog, like that Tyler Costin talked about that. First thing you got to do in your day is eat the frog, get that thing done, because we talk to our players, we talk to our students about procrastination so much. And yet I think sometimes as teachers, coaches, man, we're just as guilty of it, because if we're not organized, going back to organization, if we're not organized with our day and know how we're going to spend that time, it's really easy for distractions to come up and things to start cluttering. Where after the course of the day goes by and my wife asks me how it was, I say, I think I got a lot done. I know I was doing stuff. I'm just not sure what it was. That's the day that we got to be careful of.
Yeah. Well, as Bill Parcells says, you plan your day and then 10 things are going to come up that you didn't anticipate coming up. I mean, that's just part of being a leader. So you have to accept that, you think you've got your day ready to go, and then, Billy gets in trouble in history classes, so he's going to be a half hour late because he's got to serve a detention. How are you going to handle that? You get such and such email from a parent or another coach calls you and says, hey, how do we scout West High for Friday night? Or all those type of things. And so I think to keep the main thing, you've got to be really, really organized, and you've got to stay on top of that. And again, I'd like to think I did a really good job of that. Keeping balance. I think in my 28 years, we raised our kids through that whole time. Um, and there were very few times where I really felt like I shorted my kids, my wife, my family life. Uh, there were times, don't get me wrong, there were, but they were few and far between because I really felt like I was really organized on what I got done. I needed to get done. If I needed to put extra time into things, I would communicate it well with my family, with my kids. I would include my kids within the conversation. Hey, Carter, unfortunately, I'm going to miss your game on Saturday morning because we've got shoot around. But I'm going to be there right with you, that type of a thing. And so I think that organizational piece, I think if you don't have an organizational piece, and what works for Matt Saman works for Matt Saman. What works for Marty Plum works for Marty Plum. You've got to find your system. You got to find what works for you and make it work, but you got to stay organized. And I think if there's one daily habit that I think I'm really, really good at, I think that would be it. I mean, I really do. I feel confident in saying that.
And I think you're right on the money with how important it is, because you mentioned as coaches, especially those of us that are still in the classroom. I mean, I do have to show up at my study hall and I have to make sure they're working, but that's really it. But when you do have those responsibilities in the classroom, yeah, you don't want, if your passion, your love is basketball, you don't want to get fired because of that part.
Yeah.
And then to kind of take that into the coaching world, though, you can be charismatic, you can have great relationships with kids, you can have a great basketball mind, but if you're not organized, that's going to turn the players, that's going to turn parents against you really quick. And
they're going to see it. Yeah, they're going to see that. They're going to know. They're going to know who's got it together and who doesn't. And one of the things that I would recommend to any coach is control all the things that you can control. I mean, so you tell your team, we can control our attitude, we can control our effort, we can control, boxing out. Now we can't control if you're 5'10" and the dude you're guarding is 6'5", we can't control that, but let's, so forth and so on. I mean, as a coach, as a teacher, as an employee, you can control your organization. You can control having a good scout ready to go. You could, all of those elements along the way. So if you're telling your players, Billy, you got to come in ready to practice. You got to get out of there ready to get after it, blah, blah, blah. And you're coming to practice consistently without an organized practice plan, without knowing what direction you want to take the program, what's your vision for the program, what's your vision for your youth program, all those other things. Man, the player's going to pick up on that very, very quickly. And by proxy, that's going to get to the dinner table. And that dinner table can be such a positive influence. And it can be, more importantly for a lot of us, it can become such a negative influence in a very short amount of time. And so it's a tough battle to fight for all of us. And so you've got to control all those things that you possibly can. And I just think it's so important that you do that. And for me, I was hyper aware. I was hyper influence. It was just something I was so focused on is everything I can control with my players, control with my parents, control with my administration. Am I still going to make mistakes? Absolutely. And I did, without a doubt. But as I became more seasoned and experienced, we don't use the O word at a pen and a napkin, the O word that ends with a D and there's an L in the middle. More seasoned and experienced, you got more. I got much better at those type of things. The mistakes that I made when I was 30, completely different than the mistakes that I made when I was 50. And if I didn't, I'm an idiot. I'm a moron because I haven't learned anything. I mean, truthfully, right. You're an idiot. So I think those are the things that I think the biggest thing you can do as a coach in so many ways is if you're gonna talk the talk, you sure as heck better walk the walk. And I feel very confident about that. I feel extremely confident about that we never came into a practice unprepared. We never came into a game unprepared. We knew our scout. We knew where we were supposed to be at. Again, did we make mistakes? Absolutely. Should we have gone man when we went zone? Absolutely. But it was never because of lack of preparation.
And to that point right there, I think you'll end up having more grace from people. Love to throw that word around,
Yeah.
but you'll have more grace from your players and parents on some of those things when it's not a pattern of, oh, here we go again. He missed it again. Why are we hearing about this late again? A great example from me is 2 years ago, we had a really strong senior class and their parents were really involved. Awesome parents. It was their year to get new uniforms. We ordered from Nike. And if anybody's ever done that before, there's something happened out there to where, man, October flies by, November, all of a sudden, I hear in January they're not coming till March. So I had to tell the senior class, sorry guys, like they're just not going to come in. I ordered them on time, everything, and they were disappointed, and parents were, but there wasn't a like mutiny.
Yeah.
Or how we're going to the AD. This is ridiculous, because I had all my other stuff together where they could say, yeah, this is truly out of his control, because he is in control of all the things that he can be. And I don't mean to keep hitting this point, but I really think
it's a good point.
Younger coaches, we have to, if there's one thing I've learned from select ball, it's the difference between organized and unorganized coaches. You really see it as a parent there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you're saying there, getting out a weekly planner. We would try to have our practice schedule for the entire year. So in Nebraska, we would start mid-November, third week of November. And so we would want our practice plans, our practice times settled by at the latest mid-October. And I would want to know, okay, here's our moratorium dates for Christmas. If you're going on vacation, if you're going to see grandpa and grandma, that's great. You got 5 days. We can't practice for 5 days. State rule. But when we come back on that 6th day and we're practicing, and again, it was very clearly communicated. And I would try to explain those little things with parents. As basketball coaches, we deal with the two big holidays. We deal with Thanksgiving and we deal with Christmas. And so those are really tough to navigate. And I'm just using this as an example. And Thanksgiving's a little bit tougher because it's a shorter holiday season, so to speak. And if you're in Nebraska or Iowa, we've got a really big football game that people want to go to on that Black Friday, and I mean that in all seriousness. So I would often say, hey, on Friday of Black Friday, we're not going to practice. The football game is slated to kick off at 11 o'clock in Lincoln. Let's say they're playing in Nebraska. So we're not going to practice until, sorry about that. We're not going to practice till 6. We're not going to practice till 6. Go to the football game. If you're going to be late coming back from the football game, just text me. Let me know that you're on the way because of traffic, those type of things. So I want to work with you. I want to make sure that you guys can go to the football game and enjoy it and those type of things. And again, those situations where you can have that grace from people. I think it's so vitally important that again, it's controllable. It's so easy. And yeah, it takes forethought. You got to think ahead. You got to think big picture. But man, that can do so many positive things for you. I mean, it really, really can.
Here's an idea. Let's try to set our parents up for success. And the way that we do that is we give them a lot of time to get to see what they need to have scheduled to make plans with their families. And so one thing I've started doing the last few years is probably around early to mid-October, or August, early to mid-August, I send to the parents that I believe will be on varsity, I send an email out that has when we start, because especially for those seniors, it never fails. I'll get, because they're all scrambling for the SATs or the ACT dates. And so even though I've told them a long time, or they usually know when the season starts, I'll always get those questions. So it's like a preemptive strike. I'm going to send out this email that has the start date of practice, when Thanksgiving is and what days we'll get off, our out-of-town tournaments and what weekends those are going to be so they can plan. But to me, it's like all of those, I want to deposit. I want to deposit because come November, Yeah, I'm going to be
take some
withdrawing a
withdrawals.
lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even like the same thing with the summer. Like I always wanted to have all our summer stuff planned by April 15th. That was, easy to remember, tax day. I mean, if possible, April 1st, but, April 15th at the latest. And hey, if you've got a club thing, or if I find out, and what I would often try to do, sometimes to success, sometimes to failure, send something out to all the returning parents. What big things do you have going on this summer? Are there any dates that we need to avoid? And you wait a week, 10 days, get that back, and then you start piecing everything together. And then, of course, inevitably, you put something out there. Well, we can't, and then you get fired. Well, we can't make it that day. It's like, well, I asked you for this 3 weeks ago. But yeah, that is what it is. I understand. But again, those are things that you can do and say, hey, here's a great time for everybody to go on vacation if possible. And obviously, if you've scheduled the dream vacation to Hawaii and we've got a team camp scheduled on that date, you better go to Hawaii. And if you're not going to go to Hawaii, you could stay here and play at the team camp, and I'll go to Hawaii for you. But again, control what
you got to mean that. You got to mean that, though, too. They can't be passive aggressive, or there can't be this idea from the player or the family that there will be a consequence at some point for us missing this. Because, and man, it's so easy to do that. It's so easy to say it in a way or actually have consequences when they do come back. And I do think, not wanting to use that O word, but the farther along I get with this, the more experienced, the longer I do it. And especially it really changes for me, Coach. Like I have an 18-year-old now.
Yep.
And taking him through this whole high school, having to go home and have my wife say, why are we just hearing about this now? Like learning through it that way. That's been an eye-opening experience for me, and of ways that I used to just not consider what all they had going on, because as a less experienced, newer coach, you don't have that those experiences to look back on and how much it impacted you and your family. But now it's trying to be better for them of, hey, you got something with your family, go do that. And I you open your eyes. So there's no wink. There's nothing passive aggressive about it.
Yeah.
And again, it's just another deposit.
Yep. How much I assume, is your son playing for you?
He's a senior. Yep.
Yeah. How much has that changed your coaching philosophy?
I think PGC helped me a lot when I started with them, or I directed for them. And that was my first summer here. So that's 10 years ago is when I got plugged back in with them. That was probably one of the biggest things that changed me from wanting to be, and not, instead of being Dave Bliss or Bobby Knight. Dave Bliss was my college coach for 3 years. Instead of being him, now I want to be more like Scott Drew, who I played for 1 year. And so that was the big change. But with Landon, it's really been eye-opening for me of, am I treating every player fairly? Like, not the same, but fairly. So like for him, I've had to work at not letting my expectations for him just be way different than everybody else. I don't know if I've always succeeded in that. And we've had definitely some times where maybe I've said one or two things I know that I regret. My wife has kind of let me know, because they have a really strong relationship of, man, when you said that, it kind of cut him pretty hard. I'm like, dang it. Like, that's not really what I meant. I think that's what it is. I'm way more careful about really saying what I mean and not cutting too deep with anything, and making sure to celebrate, because I think I'm way more comfortable telling them what they need to do better, and then I miss a lot the things that they're doing right that I could just celebrate. And I think having him in the program kind of magnified that for me.
Gotcha. Sorry, bad habit of asking the questions. You're supposed to be asking me the questions, but that,
you know what? It's kind of fun. I like you. I like to listen, and I ask some follow-up questions and stuff though. So, but I don't really get many thrown back at me like that. If it ever starts going too long, just have a pen, and just start clicking it.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Scoreboard Media. Scoreboard Media works with high schools across the country to run professional sponsorship programs on their LED scoreboards. Whether you already have LED and you just want to supercharge the revenue, or you want to use sponsorship revenue to buy new LED video scoreboards, Scoreboard Media can help. They work with sponsors and advertisers locally, regionally, and nationally who want to connect with your school's community. Email info@scoreboardmedia.com to start the conversation and see what's possible.
But that was all on organization, almost about 30 minutes. So let's go to the second one.
Okay. Hey, it's your world. I'm living in it, Matt.
I think you're going to talk about journaling.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, I try to journal. It's mentally clearing for me. I don't know if that's the best way to say it. You're upset with this or that or the other thing, or you're feeling good about something, and I just think it's a positive thing. It doesn't hurt anybody. The only thing that gets hurt is maybe the paper when you're pressing down on it a little bit harder because you're venting some frustrations that you've had. But that's been something that's positive for me. I think it's so important to, man, you got to take care of yourself. And I was at a point about 6 years ago, definitely just a victim of coaches burnout, self-induced. And for me, it was a deal where I lost, excuse me, I lost my mom at 44. She died suddenly of a heart attack. I mean, she was healthy, fit, that type of thing. And things were happening with the job that were coming home in a healthy way to the marriage, stuff like that. And I was, I was taking in a massive burden of things, and it just got to the point where, man, you're losing weight, you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, all of those things. And when I got back into it the second time, I was like, I've got to have a better grip on this, because I think, one of your questions was, if I could go back in time and ask myself, what would I do differently? Just enjoy it. Just enjoy the privilege of being at practice every day. And this second time through, I really did that. I really did that. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed going to practice there. And not to say that the first time in my first job, part of the problem was, Matt, I wanted to be so good, so badly, that I put so much pressure on myself. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now with perspective, I could say that. And I just did. I wanted to be great. It's kind of like that scene in Tommy Boy where he's ordering the chicken wings, and I just want to make the sale so bad, and just and the waitress, God, you're twisted. That's probably what I was like, and it was unintentional. It was, again, it took me perspective to kind of figure that out, that I was squeezing too tightly on it, and I really enjoyed it a lot more the second time through. And so finding that joy, and like journaling was part of that. Talking much more openly about the way I was feeling, like talking with my administrators. Like I was much more proactive in my communication with my administration the second time through. If something bothered me, I would go in and talk about it. I didn't, because I'm the type of dude that normally is just like, I don't want to burden you with my problems. I want to sort this out myself. I don't want to be that guy. I feel like I'm whining to you because of this, that, and the other thing. And what I figured out was, no, it's better to go and to talk. And so I think those are things like journaling and taking care of yourself. I think that's something that I learned a lot about from myself, and that I encourage other coaches to do. I went through a situation, and I'm not going to go through the details of why I'm not coaching anymore. But it was a very frustrating thing, I guess would be the best way to say it. I still love coaching. I still love being in the gym. I still love doing that things, but in the particular situation I was in, it was not tenable anymore for me to be happy and to do what I wanted to do. I wouldn't have done that 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I'd have been the bull in the china shop. I'd have fought my way through it. I'd have been like I'm assuming this is a PG-13 podcast, so I'm not going to use the words, but,
I got the faith chair for a reason right
yeah,
now.
I see that back there, and I don't want to get in trouble either, but that's something, and I told my administration that last spring.
Yeah.
If this was 10 years ago, I'm fighting like crazy. Now I'm going to move on to other things. I'm going to do other things. I love this. I love it with all my heart. I'm passionate about it, but I got to take care of myself first. And I think coaches, if you want to have a long-term career, if you want to do this for a long time, one of the things that you have to take care of, you're so worried about taking care of your your players, you're so worried about taking care of making sure your administration's happy, you're so worried about taking care of your students in your classroom, you're worried about taking care of your spouse and your kids and all of these different things. You've got to find stuff in there where you're going to take care of yourself as well, because that's at the core of it. And if you're no good, then all of these other tentacles that come with the job, they're going to suffer. And I did a lot better job with that the second time around. I feel really good. But it was just time to move on from this particular situation,
Man, Coach, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know it started off with journaling, a habit that I'd like to get better at.
And that's my Italian attention span that kind of goes in different.
No, it's good. That's one of my favorite things about doing this is just how it flows. And I have these questions to kind of give me a roadmap, but we've already hit a couple of them, and I haven't even asked. But going back to what you shared, I wonder, do you think most coaches experience that burnout feel at least once in their career?
Yeah, well, I would imagine. I mean, if you don't, quite honestly, it's kind of it's like a warped thing within the profession or anything you want to be successful at. If you want to be a successful lawyer, if you want to be a successful whatever, pick the career. I can't think of anything other than lawyer. So, but you're going to push yourself. And part of it, to a degree, we tell our players, push yourself to a limit, or push yourself to a place that you didn't think that you had, in you. And to a degree, as a coach, we're going to do that as well. We truly want to be great. And most of us that are in this profession, we're not in it to go, hey, that was just a lot of fun putting on uniforms and running around for a couple hours. No, we're out here to win. We're out here to be competitive. We're out here to find any sort of advantage that we can against our opponent. And we look at these computer screens for hours breaking down film, and we're going through trying to make ourselves better. You do have to push yourself. I feel like now, in my own journey, I've told my wife this, I've told other people this. I'm 50. I'll be 51 next month. I don't know if I'll ever coach again. I mean, I really don't. Do I feel like I definitely could have a few more seasons in me? Absolutely. But I don't know if I can do it the way that it needs to be done, at the way that I want it done again, because I just can't do it and just to do it, just to have something to do. I'm cheating the kids, I'm cheating the parents, I'm cheating everybody that's there. And so, I think, Matt, that I think everybody probably does get to that point. It was great. I took 2 years off. I really wasn't ready to coach again until about a year and a half out. I remember distinctly about December of my second year out, and my wife and I were kind of talking about it. And I said, if the right situation came along, I think I would want to do it again. Now, it had to be the right situation, and in my mind, and everybody's checklist is different. But here's the 4 or 5 non-negotiables, and these are things that I learned, that it's got to be like this. This has to happen. This has to happen. And if nothing isn't met, I'm happy with my life right now. I don't need to do this. I feel good about it. And again, my life's a little bit different. I'm doing the podcasting. I've got the website. Doing all these other things. So I've got this basketball Jones that I can get, that competitive juice that I can get, that a lot of people don't, that most people don't. So I understand that as well. but I was very cautious as to, I wasn't just going to take a job just to take a job. And I think with a lot of coaches, sometimes we take jobs just to take jobs because we need to feel like that we need to do it. And I had a really, really good friend of mine about less than a month ago, probably at the most a month ago, who called me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about stepping away." And we talked for about a half hour, and he was picking my brain of what was my life like when I stepped away. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Um, and so those conversations need to be had, and so I do think I think it's real. I absolutely, it's real.
I think it's real too, and I think everybody probably goes through it at least once. Mine was this is my 18th year, so I'm not trying to act like I've done this for a super long time. I would imagine
15
I'm
years is a long
probably
time, man.
about probably about in the middle, right? Assuming I make it all the way through,
Yeah,
and but it was one of those deals where you're right. You're so right on the money with how you feel as a I'll say a younger coach or a newer coach is. Um, you want success so bad. You don't know what you don't know yet,
yep,
and you're spending all of your time and energy on this, and then as you go, some of those blows start to come.
yep,
That this parent is just against you, that you can't
mhm,
break through with this player, you have a losing season, you don't make playoffs, and these blows just keep going, and if you care a lot, it just hurts bad.
yep. Oh
and
yeah, you
and I
take it
don't
personally.
think I don't
It hurts
and
you.
I don't
Yeah,
think this is stuff that a lot of coaches talk about, or that it doesn't come across in podcasts very much, is but it is true. And so what it took for me was to start thinking, all right, what's next? I was about 12 to 13 years in, and I started to think, okay, what else could I do in this life? Because since I was 9, the thing I've loved the most, and obviously it's my wife now, my faith also has to be the first part, but it was
mhm,
basketball. And I've been on a team or part of a team since I've been 9. And
yeah,
so what else could I do? And so while I was coaching and teaching here, and not a lot of people know this, I don't know who cares, but I got my real estate license. And for 8 months, I was teaching and coaching, but I was also trying to sell homes. And
yeah,
I successfully helped people buy or sell 3 homes in the 8 months. And I would leave school. This is out of the season. I'd leave school and I'd drive an hour to show a home for 2 hours just for them not to do it in the end. Like that
yeah,
same letdown,
yeah, yeah,
and all of that work and stuff. But here's what I realized was that basketball wasn't a part of it, and I had no passion for that.
yeah,
And so that kind of, and I'm not saying that every coach should take a break and go look at something else, but I was able to, while maintaining my role here, look and see is there something else. And I realized that, man, my purpose, my passion isn't in that. And I don't know if I could ever find it in that, but I
yeah,
can find it here. But I do believe that we need to have outlets. And for some people, it's probably fishing, it's probably
yeah,
something else, hunting, or something else outside of basketball. Well, I love it too much that I figured, what can I do outside of my team and Grapevine Faith Christian School to kind of give me a little bit of a break, but then I want to still learn and I want to have this community. I found this,
yep,
and it's been 3 years. This is it's a lot of work to do, but man, it's so much fun getting
yeah,
to connect with people that I've never been able to. I would never know you if we didn't do this. Most likely,
yeah,
and so that's been able to give me an outlet, something else to focus on besides the 15 guys on varsity that God's put in my life and their
yeah,
parents or the rest of the program, and prioritize, but then also get to come home and get to be with Jan and my wife and completely disconnect. But then another big thing, and I'm sorry for rambling now,
it's
is
all right.
what you said. I underlined enjoy it.
Yeah,
I think I just started to enjoy it.
yeah,
And that means that you enjoy the losing. You enjoy the tough times. Obviously, it's not special to enjoy the good times. That's easy.
Yeah, that's
But
easy.
I think I enjoy it way more now than I did even, I mean, 5 years ago or but way before
Yeah,
that, because it's stopped being about me and my success and more about
yeah,
what we can do with these young guys. And I enjoy the crap out of it.
yeah. As you were talking there, I wrote down. Here's my notes for today because joy. I wrote down joy. While you were talking there, because you got to find joy in whatever you're doing. I talked to these kids at USA Basketball this weekend, and the last thing I left them with was find joy in whatever you do. And for a lot of you right now in your life, basketball brings you joy, but that might not bring you that joy 2 years from now, 3 years from now. If you love to draw, find joy in that. If you love playing an instrument, find joy. If you love math, find joy in that. And one of the things that changed my perspective is uh, I became a lot better coach when I quit worrying so much about the winning and the losing.
Yeah.
And I just focused on the process. I honestly think, Matt, you're going to think I'm nuts. You're going to think I'm nuts when I say this, but I really feel this. I've coached teams when I've been assistant coach at national tournament level, at the NAI level. We were really good, top 5 in the country for multiple years. I was assistant coach there, assistant coach on 2 state runner-up teams, but coached teams at the state tournament myself as a head coach, won conference championships, this type of thing. I truly believe the best coaching job I ever had in my career, the one of the seasons I enjoyed the most from beginning to end. We started out the year, my first year at Fort Calhoun, we started out 2-12. 2-12. We lost 8 games in a row. And those kids just kept plugging away, plugging away, plugging away. We finished 6-4 in our last 10 games because we never worried about. Now, when the lights turned on and people were in the stands, were we
Sure.
worried about winning and losing?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Let's be
But
1-0 that night for sure.
but yeah, but it was always about taking the first step, and the first step leading to the second step, so forth and so on. And that was the real. Now, I went in with that mentality because before I took over, they had won 10 games in 3 years. They had won 10 games in 3 years, and we finished that first year with 8 wins, and we would have had 9. We had a game snowed out, and I really believe we would have won that game. So we were, that close. But I became a lot better coach when I quit worrying about the winning and the losing, and just how can we get better today. And when I was at Scott, I used to say that, but I don't know how much I really did that. And again, that comes with perception or perspective. I said it. I don't know how much I really did it. I mean, I did it to a degree, but then you would get caught up in, well, and it was just different things that I changed about my coaching philosophy, how we spent time going over scouting reports, all those different things that if we want to go down that rabbit hole, we sure can. But that's what changed for me, and that's what made it better, and I think it made it better for the kids too.
I think one way if you mean it is on Saturday morning after you lost a tough game Friday night and you have that practice with your players. How do you show up?
Yeah.
Like, do you show up with, for me, it's Christian rap music, which I never knew existed before coming to this school, and high fives and smiles and physical touch with my players.
Mm-hmm.
I have to show up the same way as I would any other day, because or else I'm resulting, and I'm doing the opposite of what I asked them to do on every miss. Is next.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good test for us. I have played for coaches that we didn't know who we were getting every day.
Yeah.
And I've made a really good goal, and I think it's a good goal for every coach is be the same every day. And then how about this? If joy is what is important to us, let's make a commitment not to steal the joy of our players.
Yeah.
Because I think over the years, some of my worst moments are moments when I was taking joy from them. And
Yeah.
if anything, I just want this game to be fun. I want them to look back, and like we tell the guys, this isn't the brightest spot in your life. Don't act like it is either.
Yeah.
You're gonna get married one day. That's gonna be a really bright spot. You're gonna
Yep.
have kids one day. Oh, bright spot. Like you're gonna do things way bigger than this. But you know what? It can be a bright spot. It can be
Yeah.
one of them, but it's not the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Let's not treat it like that then. But that doesn't mean that we're not pursuing excellence every day and
Yep.
trying to be our very, very best. But that fine line of win at all costs, and I'm going to be the worst person for you if you don't win this.
Mhm.
That's one way. Or you could take the other far approach of like, hey, let's just have fun. None of this matters. I push that idea away too. I think
Yeah.
it's that fine line that if you can straddle that, man, you get the best out of your. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, obviously, but you get the best out of your players. They have this needs to be appropriately important for them.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
sometimes because it's our job, we push it to an inappropriate level, in my opinion.
Are you ready to level up your team skill development? Well, Bology is here to support you in driving accountability and skill development. The Bology app is more than just tracking. It's a resource for enhancing skills, knowledge, and mindset across your program. Join coaches all across the country using Bology to simplify training and empower your athletes. Let's build consistency, accountability, and skill development together.
One of the things that my wife and I would talk about is when you hit kind of those valleys, we kind of joke, and I mean this completely jokingly, but we would often say, hey, here's what we get for putting a large portion of our happiness in the hands of 14 to 18-year-olds. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of truth,
doubt.
and with all that being said, I'd like to think, and the only way you'd ever know this is to ask my former players. But even way back when I was talking about the times where I was doing the Tommy Boy thing, I do think that the only time I really would get upset with my teams if I felt like they were not mentally engaged or playing really hard. Everything else I was pretty okay with. Like, but if we played as hard as we could and we were really mentally engaged and we still came out under, not on top. Hey, okay, then let's try to figure out what we need to do better, and let's get better. I would really ask my teams to max out. I'd like to think it's the same thing I ask my students in the classroom. I don't care if you're a C student, be a C student, but doggone it, you better get a C in my class. But if you're an A student and you're getting a B minus, example number one of my academic career right there. I was probably an A student that got a lot of C pluses and B minuses, but in my defense, there was a lot of fantasy football that needed to be played. I was working at a pizza place. I had a lot of pizzas I had to make. So, there were other priorities that did take precedence, but in all honesty, or getting back to the point, max out with everything that you got. If we do that, that team that finished 8-16, that team maxed out. Man, that team maxed out. I've also coached teams that were 15-7, and they so underachieved for various different reasons. Some of it, yeah, there's probably things that I could do better, but a lot of times it was things that were beyond my control. The dinner table, team chemistry, and you try to build team chemistry as much as you can, but just as well as I do, Matt, sometimes you can't control everything in that pot of things. You can't control everything in the locker room. Work ethic in the off season, you can try and control it to a degree, but sometimes you can't control it. There's personal stuff that go on in a kid's life. Well, how come Mary isn't really concentrating in practice? Well, she just found out last week that her parents are getting divorced, and so basketball isn't a real priority in her life right now, and that can affect things. So there's a lot of different variables. To be really, really good, man, you got to get lucky. You got to have the right kids, the right place, and the right time with the right mentality. You got to stay injury free. All those different things. And I really, my hat's off to a guy like Kelly Flynn. He's a guy here from Nebraska. Kelly won, I think, 12 state championships, something like that. And he's a good coaching friend of mine. And we had our battles, man. We went head to head. There was one game we were in a district championship game to go to state tournament. something happened in the middle of the game, Kelly starts yelling at me. So I start yelling right back at him, and I give credit to one of my players. You go getting back to, like culture and that type of thing. She stepped in front of me. She said, "Coach, let it go. Next play, move on." I was like, and that brought me back to it, and we ended up winning. We ended up being, sorry, Kelly, I got to remind you of that one. He got me a lot more times than I got him, but I did get him that one night. But just stuff like that, and when you're not coaching, those are things that you miss. You miss that camaraderie with your players. You miss going to. I'm gonna miss going to practice, man. I loved planning a great practice and executing a great practice and helping my kids get better on a daily basis. And stuff like that is the stuff that you miss. That does bring you joy. For me, anyway. So,
and I think when you're focused too much on the record, and again, wanting to win, not bad, but I'm guilty of in year 1 or 2. Year 1, we had a pretty good year. I inherited a really good group of players, so we won a lot of games. And I started to do the math of, man, if I coach for 30 years, I'm gonna have like 600 wins.
Start polishing that Hall of Fame plaque, baby.
Oh, so stupid. But that's my mind went there. Well, the second year 2, I didn't realize how important scheduling is and the art of it. And knowing the team that you're going to have. Are you going to be younger? Do you have this experience? How much firepower do you have? Like, what is the ceiling? And realistically, and I didn't think about that. I just took this schedule and repeated it. Well, we graduated 6 seniors, and 3 or 4 of them were darn good, and the guys we're bringing up weren't the same. But I'm so good, I can make it happen here. The system will work. Well, we started 0-9, really competitive, fighting really hard, but I couldn't enjoy it because there weren't any wins in the column, and we ended up that year 14-21. So a losing season year 2. We did finish strong, but unfortunately, and I feel I apologize to those guys. I don't think I was able to enjoy the process, enjoy the moments where we did have success, and we did. There also is an idea of the plan that I had for that group probably wasn't the right one. But when you are only worried about that and what you can accomplish one day, I think you miss things, and I just keep going back. You don't enjoy it, and then how much did I steal joy from them in that process? I hate to think about that.
One of the things that I really arrived at, and I, sometimes I just make stuff up on the fly, but one of the things that I would repeat probably my last 8 to 10 years of being a head coach, going back to Scott and then Fort Calhoun. Hey, if we win, the last thing I would leave them with is, if we win, hey, girls, great game. Enjoy it. Enjoy it until your head hits the pillow. And then tomorrow morning, we got to get back up and we got to get better. And if we lost, hey, tough one tonight. Stinks. But you know what? Let it bother you until your head hits the pillow. Then we get back up tomorrow. We got to get better. And that little mantra, again, really helped with keeping those perspectives that, okay, it was great. We want to enjoy it. We should enjoy it. Let's enjoy it until the head hits the pillow. But then it's that fine balance. It's this twisted world that we live in as coaches, where if you enjoy it too much, then you're letting that big joyous moment affect the next game or two, and then you drop it, and then you're even more miserable. But you can't get too miserable, because if you get too miserable, then you're going to stay miserable, and it's going to affect your team for the next game or two. And so that's just a little mantra that I arrived at. Enjoy it till your head hits the pillow, or let it bother you till your head hits the pillow, and then the next day we got to get up and we got to go and get after. And I, like you were saying, Matt, you got to show up and be the same person every day. I really like that. And you have to do that for the most part. I think you have one time. I think as the season goes along, you have 2 good butt chewings for your team. I think you're entitled 2 good butt chewings for your team, and I think you're entitled 1 really, really grumpy day, and usually that's followed by a game or a practice where you had very poor effort, a very poor concentration. So I think as a coach, you're entitled to changing yourself 2 or 3 times a year. Now, if you need to change yourself more than that, you're probably in a lot of trouble. You're probably in a lot of trouble. And I think I got that from Pat Riley, where he said, in the NBA season, I really feel like I can get on my guys really, really hard 3 times the entire year. If it's any more than that, then we're in trouble. In my last year at my job at Scott, I got on my kids really, really hard 3 times before Christmas. Probably wasn't a good sign. Probably wasn't a good sign. And for a lot of different reasons, it turned out to be not a positive deal.
Yeah. I was thinking the Last Dance came up in my mind when you were describing the hitting the pillow, letting it go, and I don't remember who was talking about Jordan in this moment, but he was on the bus listening to music, and he said this person said he had the ability, rare ability, to be 100% present and in the moment.
Yeah,
like. Think about that. I mean, how hard that is. Like, even you and I are having this talk right now, to never let your mind go to what's next tonight, what's tomorrow. For as a player, after that game is done, to not be still going through it over and over, good or bad. Same as a coach, to be fully present when you get home, fully present the next morning, not worrying about the past. There's 2 things. And Coach, do you mind if I share 2 things?
I
don't want to.
Hey, this is the JAMODI podcast, and the host of the JAMODI podcast can do whatever he wants to do. So,
but out of the 2 of us, you're the most important person here right now, because I'm talking with you. But 2 things that helped me as a coach: stay present, stay in the moment, to let things go, and I think it's helped let our players go, let it go too. Is I've eliminated post-game talks. So after this has been years now. We, after the game, win or loss, at home, we'll go to the center court. On the road, we'll stay right by our bench, and we'll have our meeting there. There's a couple things that it does. I may be so mad and I want to yell and I want to slam stuff. Their parents are right there. I got faith on my chest. Like, it keeps me under control and from making mistakes, saying something that I'll regret. That's one thing. Because they're right there, and like Tyler Costin said, all the kids want to go is be with their friends and eat food. That's all they're thinking about anyway.
Yeah.
I talk about when practice is the next day, and I tell them I love watching you play. And then I ask if for any celebrations, win or loss, any celebrations, because we want to have a culture of celebrating. So, hey, what celebrations do you have? I like it when they celebrate after wins. I love it when they have celebrations after losses. Hey, Jimmy, I thought you really played hard tonight, man. Like, you shot lights out, Steve. Like, when they start going around there, I start to feel better. They start to feel better. And then I pray, we break, and it is less than 2 minutes long. Mm-hmm. Since doing that, I think I've had way fewer parent meetings. And I do believe that is something that, as a parent on the select ball side, that we've paid $20 to get into this game. We just lost, and maybe my son played a lot or didn't lose. We just lost, but I know they're not practicing much anyway. So what are we really upset about here? And they go outside and they talk for an hour. Yeah, I'm ready to go eat. Like, I'm ready to get out. So like that's been a huge thing. But I think those 2 things, we celebrate. I love watching you play. What's next? And then having that meeting out there stops. That game is done. Yep. We can't do anything. It's a reset. And I'm going to stay up and watch film, but I don't want them to worry at all. And I want them to show up the next day. I'm going to have joy. I don't know. I think that's a good recipe, because if I was a coach wondering, like, okay, it sounds good to say that, how do you actually do it? That's a way that's worked for me.
Yeah. No, and many of the mistakes that I made in my career, especially when I was younger, were post-game puke fests. I forget who said it, but it is. It's like when somebody throws up, the person who throws up feels better, but everybody else around them feels worse, and it stinks. Right. And that's what it's like. You go into that locker room and you're upset, and yeah, you feel better. You've got all your frustrations out, but man, you've just destroyed that. And again, not perfect, but I know, especially my 4 years at Fort Calhoun, we did a really, really good job of, hey, this, that, and the other thing. We did this here, blah, blah, blah. We had like little post, and I know a lot of people do it like post game awards where who was the Windex woman of the game, who was the Energizer bunny of the game, the best Benergy, bench energy, and a couple of different things like that. And then boom, and head on the pillow, whatever, win or lose, head on the pillow. And usually, more often than not, we were in and out of there in about 4 or 5 minutes. And that's with the awards and all that other stuff.
And I do love that stuff too. I think that's really good for culture. Yeah. I think I choose just to do it the next day.
Yeah.
Because one, I mean, and again, maybe you have assistants that really help you with that. But the whole reason too behind not having that talk is you're going off of what you think you saw.
Sure.
But it might be completely different because I'm guaranteed there's coaches on here that have felt this way. I thought we played really well, and I watched film and I realized, man, we're just luckily getting by in a lot of ways. Or I thought we summed it up. You know what, guys? Like, we're really close. So I can't go to sleep until I watch the film. Because if not, I'll just be going either on a high of like we're the best or we suck, and I need to know for sure what and formulate a plan. But
one of my standard lines in 98% of my post games was, hey, I don't want to really talk a whole lot about the game because I want to watch the film and make sure that I know what I'm feeling right now is the way I feel, whether it's a good or a bad thing. And most of the time it was a good thing. So that was definitely a standard line. And the kids, they would actually kind of make fun of me. Like, yeah, you got to wait until you watch the film, coach. It's like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because I want to be sure, and then that takes the emotion out of it for you as well. And so along with the head hitting the pillow thing, that was another cliche. That was definitely part of my post-game stuff as well. And again, I can't encourage coaches enough that post-game, get in, get out, move on, move on. And because usually there's a lot more bad that comes out of those situations than there is good.
I think simplicity all around. I think simplicity wins. So pre-game, very short. I mean, at that one of the sayings right here, the hay's in the barn. At that point, we play almost 40 games down here, in the season. So I don't have 40 rah speeches in me.
Yeah,
and I'm not really that guy anyway. Like I process. I'm focused on what we can control, knowing who we are, having an identity as a team. And so when we have, especially if we're not the type of team that tries to change and morph for every game, if we're pretty much, this is who we are, we're going to flow, we're going to play fast, and we're going to guard hard, all those things, not much changes. And so that'll be simple. Get them out of the locker room fast and get them shooting and warming up quicker. And then even halftime speeches, like I like figuring out what are things that every coach does just because it's always been done that way. And is there a different, better way? Like post-game speeches, there's no rule that says you have to do it. There's no rule that says you have to go back to the locker room at halftime. And we're at a tournament of about an hour away, and our locker room was legit 2-minute walk. It was weaving through up and down, all this stuff. And we did it the first game. And I told my assistant, I said, we're not doing this again. Yeah. So we talk for a minute. Oh, got to go back up. And we get back up and we play. Well, the next game, same gym, halftime. Hey, guys, get your chairs in a circle. I want you to talk for 3 minutes. You talk to each other. And then me and my staff went over and we talked. And during our talk, I'm kind of getting my eyes over and watching our players. And I loved it. I got to see the dudes that were just sitting there, but you know what I did see is more buying from them because they were given the directive of like, hey, this is our time to talk to each other, as opposed to like you walk in the locker room and it's just silent, waiting
Yeah.
for you to come in with all of the gold that you have for them, right? But I watch those guys talking to each other and finding solutions. So I listened to my assistants and then I came over and I was like, guys, man, I love what I just saw. I'd love to hear what you talked about. And they were
Mhm.
like, Coach, we just think we could do this better. Well, what do you think about this? You know what? I like that. And there's been some of those moments, Coach, over the years where a kid has said, hey, Coach, what do you think about going to man? Like, I think we can guard these guys. AJ, you know what? I love that. Let's come out and pick them up full court. Man, the buy-in that you get when it's their when it's their thought, and you're on board with that. Like I saw them guard harder than ever before. So I don't care what gym we play in, home, even at our gym, they will get their chairs together and we'll talk and then I'll come back and coach. Even at our gym, we save a minute of every halftime. The walk in, me
Yep.
standing there, the walk out, and we are always out there shooting before the other team comes out, which I believe is more important than anything I could tell them anyway, is them getting
Yep.
shots up being prepared to play.
Yep. I got two things to add on to that, Matt. Pregame. This was again revelation, and one of the things that I did in those 2 years that I took off in between jobs is I went around, watched a lot of practices. I was so fortunate to have so many people that allowed me to come into their practices, and games and things like that. And one of the things, one of the guys I grew up with is a guy named Dick Jungers from Newell Fonda here in Iowa, and Dick and I mean, we were born 8 days apart. We grew up together, that type of thing. And he's got a great program at Newell Fonda. He's won 4 state championships, been runner up 3 or 4 other times, and I went and watched his team play. And one of the things that he did was they had a pregame focus song, and Dick was a psychology guy, or he's yeah, and so he had a pregame song, and he was just kind of like their focus song type of a thing. And what that did was, for 2 minutes, when that song, those kids could do whatever they wanted to in the locker room, but when that song came on, man, we're locked in. It's time to go. And so I adopted that. And what I didn't realize unintentionally, I brought that to Fort Calhoun. But what else that also did was that only gave me like 2 minutes to write up on the board before the game to not screw them up. I mean, literally, and I used to be kind of the guy. I mean, I would have the answers to the Da Vinci Code up there on the wall there. I was like, no, just here's your matchups. Here's the couple of keys. Go out and play. And that's one thing that we did. And then at halftime, you're talking about halftime. I got this from Don Meyer, and I did this my entire career. We would take the 2 or 3 minutes. We would talk as a staff. We would give dry erase marker to one of our players, and their job at halftime was they need to write 2 or 3 things that we did well in the first half, 2 or 3 things that we need to do that we didn't do well that we've got to do better in the second half. And we gave them that freedom of 2 or 3 minutes to write that stuff up on the board. And more often than not, it forced the kids to talk at halftime. They just weren't in there, picking their nose or just, farting around. It forced them to think, to talk, to communicate. And we tried to give the marker to a variety of different kids, so it wasn't the same players writing up on the board every single time. More often than not, the stuff that we talked about in the hallway, that was up on the board. And that allowed the buy-in. It allowed for clear and concise communication within the team. And so, okay, where do we go from here? How do we? And so they self-identified a lot of the things, and they knew it was coming. They knew it was, once they figured it out, it's like, okay, we've got to be engaged. We got to know what's going on with the game here. And those kids that maybe weren't playing a lot or didn't play at all, they still had to be engaged. They still had to contribute to the halftime discussion. So that was really important as well.
I like that. I've never heard of either of those things. The pregame focus song, and kind of interested in that. And what type of song? Like, do they choose the song
I let
that
them
it
pick
is?
it. I mean, I didn't care. I mean, I would have preferred Duran Duran or REO Speedwagon or something like that. But usually it was some sort
guys, we're gonna listen to Metallica Fuel here before we get played.
It was something. Usually the girls picked out something inspirational. What's I'm unstoppable. I'm sorry, gosh, my nasally Italian voice here going karaoke night on you here, but something that was appropriate, and it was said, it needs to be appropriate, but
no, I like that. I like the idea of them. Oh, it's like a daily prime, like this. When you hear this, now it's your time to do this.
Yep.
Because so much like if I don't know if I'm very specific with them of when is it time to lock in, because what I don't want, I would rather our players be more on the loose, excited, ready to play side than the amped up so much that I'm going to slam my head through the locker side. But what is it like? What is the time that our guys should be? We use the term lock in quite a bit. Like when we're training and I blow my whistle to stop, hey, lock in. Like, so what is the time for them to do that? What is I don't think I have a moment that they need to, but I think a pregame focus song could be that. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
So let me ask you this: you guys play JV games before you play varsity games?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or the girls, or
whatever. So you got something going on before your game. You can't tell me that you're in the bleachers in the third quarter of the JV game, or in your case, like the girls' varsity game, maybe, or whatever, and you're not at some point or another cracking a joke or something funny happens, and you're doing this and that, and you're walking to the locker room, or maybe you're walking in the locker room and something happens, and if a kid did that, would you lose it? Some of you might. You're not focused. You're not locked in. It's okay for me to do it, but you better be locked in. Well, I know how to lock in. Man, there is only so much mental energy that all of us can give. So you've got to be really smart about budgeting. We always talk about budgeting physical energy. We talk about shortening practices as the season goes along and doing this and doing that. And some people go no contact and whatever it may be. You know what? There's only so much emotional energy that people can give as well. So and I'm pretty self-deprecating with my humor. I'm sure you've probably picked up on that. It's a basketball game. I mean, think about it. It's a hoop that's hanging 10 feet above the ground, and we spend hours and days trying to figure out how to do that more than somebody else. Yeah. So it's serious. Yeah, it's this. Yeah, it's that. But at the same time, let's keep it in perspective. Let's find joy. Yeah, we want to take it seriously. Yeah, we want to win. Yeah, there is like that, for lack of a better way of saying it, that high of winning a big game, man, that's a drug. I don't care what anybody says. That's a drug. That's a rush. That's real. And I that's, again, it's important. Like I said earlier in the pod, we're not just showing up going, hey, look how pretty our stuff is, and that was fun to run around for a couple hours. No, there's a purpose of what we're trying to do. But man, there's only so much emotional energy that a team can give, that an individual can give. So you got to be smart about it. If you're talking about a kid that's getting locked in, are you truly locked in at 4:00 for a 7:30 game? Or are you, if you're sitting in your office, or if you're sitting in your classroom and you're shooting the breeze with your coaches and somebody cracks a good joke, are you not going to laugh? Of course you're going to laugh. So you got to give that same grace to your kids. You got to give that same thing to them. As long as they're ready to go, 30 to 45 minutes, like I said, that's magic to me. If I ever get back into it again, I'm going to do the same thing, because it's okay. Now it's time. It's a universal signal to everybody within the program that when we hear this, and those couple songs that my kids used the last 4 years, whenever I hear them for the rest of my life, I'm going to think of that, okay, it's time to get locked in and time to compete. And I think that mentally, I think that's just such a positive thing. And it takes the burden off of you as a coach.
Man.
Push play. Okay, no debating anymore. We've all agreed it's time to lock in. And I think that's such a good thing. And that's why Dick's done what he's done. And I'm really proud of him. I'm so happy to call him one of my really, really good friends. I mean, we've known each other for 40 years and we're still tight. And I'm really proud of that.
I think I needed to hear that. And what I love about doing this now for almost 3 years is every talk, there's at least one golden nugget that I think there's a ton of golden nuggets that people can get from this. And I'll get more than one, but there's always like one thing that, golly, that's really good. And I needed to hear that for me as a coach at Grapevine Faith. I think we overestimate how important being locked in or in the zone is before games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's as important as we like to pretend it is. Mm-hmm. And another thing I've realized about myself is I forget quite a bit how I really was as a player.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe tell a different version to my players now of how focused, how driven, how hard I worked, mm-hmm. And now I've gotten away from, I don't even talk about my playing career anymore because I did realize that they don't care. They don't care that I play at all. But, exactly. Okay, before games, I'd have my music in and when I'd shoot around and stuff, and then I'd go in the locker room and I'd sit there and I'd be talking and it might not even be about the game.
Yeah.
And then coach would come in and then, okay, what are we talking about? Scouting report, I'm in. But that was the moment. I didn't have to sit in a dark room or I've told guys like, hey, we're going to sit in the stands. Don't talk to anybody while we're sitting in the stands. Like, why? What are we achieving? Again, how much joy am I sucking out of this experience for them?
Yep.
I think that's something where I'm going to, because you're right on the money. I mean, my wife will be there. I'll talk with her, other coaches. I'll see friends. I'll see other like this. And then right before I walk in the locker room, all right, game time. That's how long it takes right there. I just did it. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. But now you focus. We talk about these things. And then how we warm up should be a reflection more on how we approach every day anyway. Yeah. We're about excellence. We want to be excellence and confidence comes from our preparation. Let's prepare properly now in this 15 minutes that we have. Man, I think I needed to hear that. But you're right. It gets to, we feel like it's so important. Dave Bliss, this is I have some good stories about him. Unfortunately, a lot of people think of just the bad stuff, but he was great to play for those 3 years in moments. And one thing was we were at Kansas and we were beating them by 10 at halftime. And he comes in, he's talking, and he's really like proud of what we've been doing. And he just takes his fist and he slams the locker. And I mean, in my mind, it was like almost 20 years ago now, but I think he dent that thing. Like he hit it hard. He's like, golly, like, do you know what you have in front of you? Do you know? And then like we're about to run out, and I look at his hand, and it's just shaking because he's like, he broke something. But he looks at me and he goes, Matt, like, this is the only way I can compete now. And I love it. Like, and it was so chilling to be like, I was ready to run through a wall. So, but even at Grapevine Faith Christian School at a 5A TAPS level, which is not, we're not a big school. Like, I get that feeling, but I can't, maybe these high school kids, like, they don't look at it that way. They don't view it. So I just need them to, again, I need them to be appropriately bought in.
Yeah.
The normal the amount that they should, not more. The fact, or like to me, I'm going to break my knuckle because I'm so hyped up and ready. But I just slip that Dave Bliss story in there.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, Matt. I think you hit the nail on the head, and perfect. Perfect.
Coach, I would like to have a round 2 at some point, if you don't mind,
Sure.
in our talk, because everything we just talked about was based off of the daily habits that set you up for success, and we went for an hour and a half almost through that. So maybe we hit a couple other of the questions for round 2. You good with that?
This is my Italian, like, my podcast came about. I've told the story many times, and my wife kind of says, no, that's not how it really happened. I'm telling you right now, this is how I have. And she said, we have a movie theater that has since closed since COVID hit. Quarantine just killed it. But it's like 4 blocks away from our house. So like when our kids were really young, we would literally walk over to the theater. They had like free movies on Thursday mornings, so cheap daycare. We'd go over, spend time with my kids in the summertime, blah, blah, blah. So we were walking back, and I was kind of, we were talking about basketball, and I was like, I kind of feel like I want to do something, but I'm not ready to coach yet. This was at the end of year 1 of the 2-year sabbatical. And she goes, I want to do something, but I'm not really sure what to do. And she says, well, why don't you start a podcast? You like listening to podcasts and you talk a lot. And so here you are, you asked me one question, and 90 minutes later, we've covered basically maybe 1.5 of the 7 or 8 things that I sent you here. So part of this is on me, Matt. It's
the fun part. Is just to see how it flows. But I do want to take you through the speed round and then talk a little bit more about your book here at the end. So speed round, quick questions. First thing, blurt it out.
Okay, I got to be careful with this. So
yeah. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Okay, strawberry.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Oh, geez. It's got to be either Steph or Clay or Kyle Korver.
Nice.
Yeah.
Favorite superhero?
Oh gosh, my son would love to answer this question. Thor.
Oh, good one.
Thor. Let's go Thor.
Yeah. My wife would shake her head about me saying, "I'm kind of a Chris Helmsworth. I'm a fan."
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, top 3 dinner guests if you could choose from any time period.
So I cheated on this. I heard you ask Charmin this, and I did think about it. So
nice.
I would love to hang out with Bono. Okay. Big U2 fan. Huge U2 fan.
Nice.
I would love to hang out with Bono. Don Meyer. And Abraham Lincoln.
That's a solid list.
Yeah. So I did cheat. I did cheat because I did ask you, and I thought if he asked me that, I'm going to be ready for it. So,
best basketball movie of all time?
Blue Chips.
Oh, I was expecting Hoosiers just because of that neck of the woods. I mean, up that way, but
I loved Blue Chips. I actually had Rex Walters on my podcast, and
that's awesome.
I had forgotten that Rex was in the movie. And so we spent if you listen to it, we spent the first 5 minutes just talking about Blue Chips. That's all I cared about. I just wanted to talk about Blue Chips with him, so I love that movie.
That's awesome. Texting or talking?
It depends on the situation. Mainly talking. Talking. Depending on the situation. Sometimes it's better to just send a simple text and keep it nonverbal because bad things maybe happen if he gets verbal.
Now I'm in Texas where we don't have a shot clock. For a high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
I felt a lot of alignment with you throughout this talk. If you would have said no right there, I would have just clicked it off. And no.
Shot clock.
Do you guys have it where you are?
So 2 years ago, they started it with the Class A. So the biggest schools, the Omaha and Lincoln schools, it went well. Of course, it went well. So they went Class A and Class B. And now it's a statewide thing this year. So nice. I missed out on it. So, but such is life.
How long do they go?
I think it's going to be 30 seconds. No, 35.
35 is what I've heard from a lot of the high schools. 35. I wouldn't mind 24. I think 24 would be great. But favorite holiday?
Um, 4th of July? No,
Yeah,
Halloween.
Coach.
Sorry, scratch that.
All right.
Halloween. I love the month of October. October is my favorite month, not just because I was born then. I love Halloween, and I love October. And I don't so much. I guess I should say I like Halloween, but I love the month of October. I love the feel of October.
You're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
If you have rehearsed it, foul. If you've worked on it, foul. If you haven't, you play it out and you just hope your kids play great D and you don't foul a 3-point shooter in the act of shooting.
Yep.
But I don't think you can just say on the sideline, and speaking from experience, we got burnt by it once. Actually, it was kind of that situation where we were up 3. There was like 12 seconds left. We wanted to dog the ball up the floor, get to about 6 or 5, and then foul. But we hadn't worked on it. My girl fouled her with 10 seconds left. And that was my fault as a coach. I put the kid in the best situation because we hadn't practiced it. So if you've practiced it, foul. If you haven't, then play it out.
Besides your own, what book would you give to somebody?
Bill Simmons, The Book of Basketball, depending on their sense of humor, because there's language in it and different things like that. But if and I don't begrudge anybody for that. I mean, your beliefs are your beliefs, but I think it's a great basketball book. I think it's funny. I like to laugh. I like to have fun. So The Book of Basketball by Bill Simmons is probably my favorite book of all time.
Favorite place to travel?
Probably Jamaica. My wife and I went there for our 25th wedding anniversary. We got off the plane, and the next day we started thinking about how soon we can get back. And so, so that was probably my favorite vacation that we've ever taken. But nice. I like. I'm a history teacher, so I like going to historical places. Gettysburg was one of my favorite places I've ever been to. That was really cool.
Nice. In basketball, who is the GOAT?
Jordan. In that, I said this to a kid today in class. LeBron has had the best career, but if my life is on the line, I want Jordan. One game.
Well said. Yeah. Watch The Last Dance, and you just see the difference.
Yep.
Yeah. Coach, this was awesome. I enjoyed it so much and really felt, I don't know, just an ease getting to talk with you. And maybe it's because you have a podcast as well. But I think hopefully it was fun for you to kind of get to share your views and answer some questions. And
it's been great. I mentioned earlier that I don't know if I'll ever coach again. And I don't mean that I miss it. There's certain things I really, really miss, but for me and my mentality, I don't know. It's just going to have to be really, really right for me to do it again. And I'm not ruling that out. There's 2 things that I'm missing from my career that I really wanted to accomplish. I got to coach with my oldest son. It was special. I really enjoyed it. I've never gotten the opportunity to coach with my other son, and he wants to be a Spanish teacher and a coach. And I would really, I would love to be able to do that. That's the one thing that's missing. The other thing that's missing is I've never gotten to cut down the nets at the end of the season. And there is that special that is selfish, that competitive thing about you. I've finished state runner up a couple of times, but never got to cut it down. Those are the 2 things that I would love to be able to do. And we'll see where the road takes us. But as I say that, I've also talked with my wife about maybe this last third of my coaching career is just meant to take all of my experiences and all of the things that I've had in my journey and help other coaches get better, help them understand. Like I'm really, really open, especially in private, about a lot of the things that have happened in my career. 96% of it has been awesome, but there's been downtimes, there's been tough times, and I think that I'm willing to share those stories with us because I think one of the things that I learned, kind of talking about younger coach versus seasoned and experienced coach, I look over at Matt. My first year or two is like, I want to kick Matt's butt, and I don't like that guy, and I'm coming after him, and all that stuff. Hey, we're all cut from the same cloth, and if we don't depend on one another, if we don't look out for one another, it's tough to do this job. And some of my best friends that I have are from coaching, and I think that camaraderie, it's special. It's special to be part of the coaching community. I plan on staying very much a part of the coaching community. It's just probably going to be in a little bit different role, and I'm still working on finding that niche with the stuff that I'm doing, with writing the book, with doing the podcast, all that stuff. It's just gonna, but it's special to be part of, and if this is what I do for the next 15 to 20 years, is to help other coaches in whatever way that I can, then that's what I'm up to doing, and that's what I really want to do. That's what I'm really passionate about right now.
Love that. On that note, love to talk about your book.
Uh,
Man, tell me a little bit about it.
Okay, so I want to give a visual aid here. All right.
Yeah.
I'm holding two books in my hand right now, and one of them is a heck of a lot better than the other one. The green one is way better than the one in white here. No, so when you reach out to me, Matt, I seriously, I read your book about 6 to 8 months ago, and I mean this in all sincerity. So courageous for you to write something like this, to put something out there, to share your experience, to give the other side of the story. Because when all of that stuff happened when you were in college, people only assumed the worst about the Baylor program, about everything that happened, like you said, about Coach Bliss, and everything. And it was bad. I mean, there were a lot of bad things that came out of that, but it took a lot of courage for you to tell the true story and the lessons you learned. Like, I loved at the end of the book where you talked about how you thought Coach Bliss's way of coaching was the only way to do it, but then you really fell in love in 1 year with what Coach Drew did and the way he treated you guys and things like that. So I truly meant that when you reached out to me. I was like, oh man, I really enjoyed reading that story. So but yeah, so here it is, Kings of Their Court. Just go to Amazon, go to books, type in Kings of Their Court, and it should pop up. But it's a story. It was originally going to be a podcast. I was actually going to experiment with a narrative kind of podcast and kind of expand that side of the podcasting thing. And then very quickly, as I got into it, I realized, A, I wanted to make some money off of it. I'm going to be honest with you about that. But B, it was just too big of a story to do in a podcast. I mean, it just really was. And so it's the story of the 2021 basketball season here in Omaha. Omaha, I think even people from Omaha would say this is not a national hotbed for high school boys basketball. We've had some good players. We've had a couple of good teams, especially like Omaha Central back in 2009, 10, 11, right in that range, had some really good teams. But nationally, people aren't they're not beating down their door to come to Omaha. But in this one season, there were 3 teams that were ranked in the top 25 in the country. Not just one, but 3. Bellevue West, Creighton Prep, and Millard North. And so the story, essentially the story starts with the 2020 state championship game, which was the last live sporting event that took place in the country before quarantine shut everything down.
Wow.
And I don't want to give away the horse here, so to speak, but there was this very classic game that normally would have been played in front of 10 to 12,000 people that was played in front of maybe 400 people in a live circumstance. And it tells the story of basically the next 365 days, from this game to the end of the state tournament in 2021. So you've got these 3 great teams with some of the best players that Omaha has ever produced, names that people will recognize, like Chucky Hepburn, who started at Wisconsin for 3 years, Hunter Salas, Frankie Fiddler, who was going to play at Michigan State this year, and a lot of different names of kids. The journeys of the 3 coaches that they went on, and then COVID quarantine, George Floyd, politics of the time, and all of those different things, and so it was a pretty crazy 365-day journey, and I just, one of the things that I really hope is I hope that I told the story well. That's kind of because it's not my story. It's everybody else's. Everybody else in the book, it's their story. And I just hope I was able to take their stories and tell it well and tell it in a way that they're happy with. That's the number one thing that I'm concerned with. So that's the book. I think people. I think if you like basketball, if you like sports stories, I think you're really going to enjoy it, because there is a lot of twists and turns to it, and obviously it all happened. I think it's just a really good story.
Yeah. Well, as a basketball junkie, I think I'm excited to get to read it when it comes out, and I think other coaches will too. Yeah. Also, I do want you to talk about how coaches can follow you, because that's where this relationship began, was on Twitter, and just all the amazing things that you post and how active you are on that. So go ahead and share that.
Yeah, a pen and a napkin, at a pen and a napkin is the Twitter handle. I don't care if people say X, it's going to be Twitter as long as I'm involved.
Sure.
But thank you. Sorry, Elon, if I've offended you. But Twitter, have a website, a pen and a napkin.com. Again, I believe just giving back to the game. Again, kind of the Don Meyer influence. So I've had a coaches clinic the last 4 years. We've taped most of the presentations. So I've got videos to order. I've done probably about 20 videos myself of just working with administration. Stuff. When I started it, it was what if I was starting out as a high school coach, what were the things that I would want to know? A lot of times we get caught up, like we've talked about for however long we've been talking, Matt, about X's and O's. We think it's about X's and O's. We think it's about the next play. We think it's about the next drill. And I have a video on fundraising. What can you do to fundraise for your program? And so it's really affordable. It's $10 a video. Things like that I have available. And you just kind of experiment and throw stuff up against the wall, and hopefully some of the spaghetti will stick. So if you're interested in any of that, you can DM me on Twitter. You can email me, a pen and a napkin @gmail.com. Reach out to me anytime. It was really cool. I did this USA thing this weekend, and I gave this presentation on toughness, and I already had 2 or 3 kids reach out to me. Hey, coach, I really liked your thing. I got questions about this and this and this, and so that's that's probably my next step is to take all of these things and take all my basketball energy and just put it into helping other people. And that's what I find joy in right now, is really doing that type of stuff.
Awesome. Well, Coach, I appreciate you sharing that. Looking forward to the book. Looking forward to part 2 of this, which we'll do here in a little bit. But thank you so much for your time.
You bet, Matt. Thank you for having me, man. It's great.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.